Today we are tackling, I would say, a very familiar old friend of mine, procrastination. This is not just a habit, but really we're going to be talking about how it shows up in a deeper way that impacts our integrity with ourselves. Anytime we put something off, we think the thing is going to be painful. We think doing it is going to be hard or challenging or draining. But the reality is, when we put it off, we're actually making the pain or discomfort greater. Welcome to Becoming You. I'm Rebecca Cafiero, your guide to aligning deeper with what you want in life. And this really has hit me in the last 2 weeks after an incident with my 8-year-old son, Luca. He had acted out in class and nothing major, but it was the first time I've ever had a teacher say, hey, he acted out today, or he spoke out of turn and it was disruptive. And so we had a big conversation about it. We talked about, why it's important and the consequence. And he needed to go talk to the teacher outside of class and apologize and just say, I'm sorry for being disruptive. I will do better, and let the teacher know that he was aware his behavior was not okay. And because it wasn't his normal teacher, the only way he would see that teacher was going to be 2 weeks later because of our fall break. So he said, Luca, go before school, talk to him in his classroom or on the playground. Luca made some effort, but he had some fear and some shame around doing the thing. He was afraid, I think, of just, owning it, right? And that's often, even as adults, we're afraid of owning our mistake, of owning our shortcomings or where we messed up. So it just became this thing that when he came back to school, I said, Luca, this will be 2 weeks. I know this is not feeling good in your body because you're afraid to do it. And it's gotten bigger and bigger of every day that goes by. And we talked through it, and finally, he did it the next time he saw the teacher. And I talked to him that night and he's like, Mom, I feel so much better. And the teacher was wonderful and receptive. And the teacher knew that Luca was going to talk to him. And Luca said, he's a very wise old soul at 8. He said, Mommy, I can't believe how much lighter my body feels after I talked to the teacher. And we talked about that. As I was talking to him about it, I said, yes, anytime we put something off, we think the thing is going to be painful. We think doing it is going to be hard or challenging or draining or whatever, the energy is. And so we put it off because we feel like we're going to have more courage or bravery or time later and it will somehow be easier. But the reality is, Luca, when we put it off, we're actually making the pain or discomfort greater, because what's happening is that we are now going to experience it over a longer period of time. So it might feel a little bit less bad every day, but the sum is going to be greater. And as I was sharing this with him, I realized I was out of integrity myself, because I had several, I call it loops that I needed to close, or things that I owed that people were waiting for that I was totally behind on. And some of them were for good reasons. Some of them were not. Some of the reasons were I got behind on it and then I didn't want to deal with it because I was embarrassed of being behind. And as I sat there, I said, I can't have this conversation with my child while I'm out of integrity. And so it really prompted me to reflect on my own procrastination and where that's shown up in my life. So let's talk about, first of all, why do we procrastinate? We all know intellectually it's a terrible idea. It is never going to make things better. But there's a few different reasons that, I think most people procrastinate, that I know I procrastinate. And the first one is fear of failure or perfectionism, right? We tend to delay tasks because we're afraid of doing them wrong. We're going to be better about this tomorrow. Something like 20% of people are chronic procrastinators, which is often because of their own fear of not meeting their high standards. So I call this perfectionism through procrastination, or procrastination by perfectionism. It's really because you don't want to get started because you haven't given yourself permission to have a very crappy first draft. And how this shows up for me is I'm I want to have this beautiful proposal to a client on something that isn't exactly something I've done or I offer. So it doesn't mean I can just copy, a template I already have, send them a link, send them a video. It means that I need to do something bespoke and custom. And then I go into what should this look like? What should it feel like? And if I don't just sit down and do it right there and give myself permission for it to be imperfect and to communicate with the client, hey, this is a custom thing. I'm going to give you this. I don't need it to be perfect to be the essence of who I am or what I offer. That's when it leads to procrastination. The other is lack of motivation or interest. That's another reason we procrastinate. We just typically don't follow through with things that don't feel exciting, don't feel meaningful. And that's where we often prioritize short-term comfort over that long-term fulfillment. So this will probably looks like this to me, I know I need to get this thing done. relaunching my website and getting my copy to by the way, I'm literally giving a real example of something that I am getting done tomorrow that's quite late because I am being very vulnerable and honest about where I procrastinate. However, if you come to my house, the laundry isn't always done, but the dishes are done. The house is immaculate. Like I don't drop the ball, especially when it comes to things like my kids' lunches and all of this. So I am prioritizing the short term over the long term. And it's easy to do this. I joke that it's when you write down like, here's the top 3 things I need to do today that are going to move my business, my goals, my finances, my health forward. And then you do the things that are just easy, low-hanging fruit and you add them to the list and you check them off because it makes you feel like you did more. And it helps to justify the procrastination of the things that are very important. Okay, number 3 is overwhelm. This can kind of go into that perfectionism, but when a task feels too big or we have too many and we don't know where to focus first, we can freeze. And there's this research that's done on procrastination, which is we often delay things to escape feeling stressed or overwhelmed, which the ironic thing about all of this is it keeps us out of integrity with the bigger goals. Now, why does procrastination create a lack of integrity? Or what does it mean to be out of integrity when you're procrastinating? And what it is that when we're procrastinating, because we've said we're going to do something or we know we need to do something, it's not just that we're putting off the task, right? It's not just, I didn't have time today. If it was really important and we were in integrity, we would have done it. It's actually that we're breaking a promise to ourselves. We're acting out of alignment with our values and our goals of what we said is important to us, what we said is a priority. And I'm using as my husband calls it, my Enneagram 8 tone because I'm talking to myself. I will be listening to this. Future Rebecca, please listen to this and absorb it. There's a quote from Brene Brown that is, integrity is choosing courage over comfort, choosing what is right over what is fun, fast, or easy. Yeah, that's a tough one because what it is about is that our integrity is connected to our actions and that it takes courage to take action to live in our integrity. And so when I had this conversation with my son, there is a part 2 to this around going to the dentist office, and an hour and 45 minutes after our appointment started where he was going to get his very first filling ever, an hour and 45 minutes it took, we did not even get to the numbing shot for it. And as a parent, it was one of the more stressful things I've done, which that's a very first world thing. But as someone who's gone through some PTSD around cancer and medical, like having my child in distress and scared of a even very minor safe procedure was really hard for me. And so as I was reasoning and giving him Reiki and bribing him and trying not to threaten him and trying all of the things in the hour and 45 minutes that the poor dentist was being so patient, it came back to this conversation of like, Luca, sometimes we have to do hard things that are really uncomfortable. And remember how much better you felt after you said sorry to the teacher, and how it lifted that weight off. And the longer that we wait on this, the longer we procrastinate about doing this, it's not going to get easier. He's like, Mommy, can we come back? And I'm like, we can come back, but it's not going to be easier next time. It's actually going to be bigger the longer we wait. And as I sat there, I realized I was totally out of integrity in that moment, because I had some proposals that were a couple of them just a little overdue and a few of them that were grossly overdue to the point I was like, I don't even want to send this anymore because I'm embarrassed that this person is not going to want to work with me because I feel out of integrity. And they, of course, can see that and sense that. And so we rescheduled the appointment from Thursday to the next Tuesday. And I said, the next day, I cannot show up to that next dentist appointment and tell him the same thing. And I can't expect energetically that my son is going to do the hard thing when I, as his mother and as his energetic guide, am not doing them. And so I literally sat down on that Friday. Luckily, one of my best friends, Lisa, who's also my attorney, I was like, Lisa, my intention for the day is to do this thing as we co-work and do not let me talk or get distracted or even eat the yummy lunch that I'm about to order until I've done it. And I did it. And the ironic thing I'll tell you, and this is what often happens when we make this big story up to ourselves, is I reached out to these 2 potential clients and I said, I am so sorry. I owned it, right? I am so sorry that it's taken so long. A lot of life has been happening, but that's not the important thing. If you're still interested in getting this proposal, I would love to send it over. Let me know and I'll send it over shortly. They both texted me back almost instantly. And one of them said, I'm so glad you're alive. Glad to hear everything's great. I'm on vacation, but I'd love to connect next week. Yes, please send it over. And the second person said, so good to hear from you. I've actually been out of the country for the last 7 weeks. And this is absolute perfect timing to reconnect. And of course, I instantly, the shame I felt was gone. I kind of laughed about it because I'm like, man, I made this into such a big deal and it's okay. However, it wouldn't always be okay. In life, we will lose businesses, opportunity, relationships, from being out of integrity like that. I was really fortunate in this situation. None of those things happened. But how do you realign your integrity and how do you, realign yourself? And also, by the way, stop procrastinating. So number one, identify and own it. Acknowledge like where it's holding you back. In my case, I had to get accountability. I said, I have like 5 proposals to send out. 2 of them are embarrassingly overdue. I'm going to literally sit my butt in the chair. It's called AIC time, ass in chair. And I am going to take care of it because I know I'm going to feel better. Even if they never respond, I will feel better that I have closed this loop. And you can ask yourself, why am I delaying what's truly important to me? And in both of these cases, it was I had to have clarity on what I was willing to offer, especially in this season of evolution around what I put out into the world. And when I took those proposals, I should have said, hey, let me think about this for a little bit, because I wasn't ready with a quick answer. So no, that's number one, is identify and own it. When you're out of integrity and someone else knows it, the last thing you want to do is ignore the problem. It's not going to go away, or not own up to the problem. So just identifying and owning up. Most people are very compassionate and pretty gracious. So own it. And I did. I owned it. I was like, this is embarrassing. I'm embarrassed to tell you that it's been too long. And then reconnect with your why. Remind yourself, why does this thing, this task, this goal, this action matter? Again, going back to the research, if you need it, it shows that we're more likely to complete a task when it aligns with our core values or our bigger purpose, our vision. So re-tapping into why is this an important thing? Because it's not just an obligation. If it's an obligation and you are no longer connected to it, let it go. You can reach out to the person if it's a proposal and say, you know what, after thinking about this, this is no longer something I'm offering, but I'd be happy to make a referral for you. And you can go back to the obligation audit in the Balance Blueprint if you are like, yeah, I need to know, is this an obligation or is this really something that is central to my values, my mission, my purpose? And then just take small aligned actions, right? Something manageable, like the micro win, the micro habits. Small steps create momentum. They boost your self-trust. They help you feel back in alignment. I think we feel like, I knew I wasn't going to do an entire website that I owe to my webmaster tomorrow, but I can get done one page. I can get done one step, and that's going to unkink the hose of the block of the procrastination, right? So it's much more beneficial to do like one small thing every day and to build that muscle than it is to spend one day every other month cleaning up the mess that is made, the dust that is accumulated. And, for me, when I realized I wasn't integrity and I took action on the thing I've been putting off, like I can't tell you how much lighter it made me feel. And it made me recommit to like get stuff done quickly. Today's Monday. I am going through text messages I received Friday afternoon. I would have done them earlier, except I had a sicko kid. And I'm saying that. Sorry I didn't get back to you earlier. Dealing with a sick kid on Friday. It's still within one business day. Here's the point. Living in integrity is not about being perfect, right? It's about showing up. And it's about when we forget to show up or we're late to show up, owning it. It's about keeping the promises to ourselves and others. It's about these small actions that align with our deeper values. This week, look at one thing you've been putting off. Whether it's an obligation to release, it's a loop to close, take one small action towards it. You'll notice the shift, how it feels, how much lighter you feel. And if you've been feeling a little slow, a little unmotivated, it might be from the guilt or the shame that procrastination creates and the lack of alignment that it results in. Thank you as always to tuning in to Becoming You. Don't forget to subscribe or share this if you love it. Leave a review. I literally read every single one, but keep realigning and stepping closer to the life that you envision.